You're a fool.
Welcome, everybody, to the Racing Foolz podcast, powered by Low Budget TV and brought to you by Crown Performance. This is episode 2, and today we will be talking West Coast Swing with Fontana and Phoenix. I'm Charlie Seungtai. Joining me, as always, is Jeffrey Best and Tommy Mason.
What's happening?
Dude, we can say that because we're surfers.
We are. We're California surfers.
Coast.
SoCal surfers.
That's fitting because we just raced in California. So
We're in the middle of the West Coast swing, and we got the chance to go and do a little field trip on the weekend out at Auto Club Speedway, which is only about an hour and a half total length from technically where we all live. So within an hour and a half. And we got to have some fun out at Auto Club Speedway. Went to the Saturday Xfinity race and the Sunday Cup race.
technically went Friday too, but they didn't take our money. But we'll get to that later.
Oh, that's a good story, actually. We might have to add that into our stories coming up here in the show. But Jeffrey, you had the longest drive. How was it?
Yeah, I had the longest drive twice. Only once did they shut down the freeway on me, which is pretty good for LA. Mm-hmm. No, I mean it was fine. You know, driving in the morning. I guess you could say the most nerve-wracking part of it was just watching the sky on Sunday morning, just wondering, is it going to start raining? Are we going to make it today? But we did. Weather held off, and the drive home was exciting because the rain came down. Like it waited for us to finish that race. About 2 hours later, we were finishing up dinner, and it was pouring in the area. So,
did you have rain the whole way home?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Free car wash.
Yo, yeah.
Yeah, we got lucky because it was drizzling during driver intros, and I was pretty sure the race was going to get delayed a little bit, but the raindrops stopped, and we ran the race start to finish, no problem at all. So
Fontana's funny because it's a track where I can't really compare to other large, speedways out there, but with Fontana, it's kind of goofy because there could be cars on track at speed, and unless they're going within, I'd say 30 yards to your left or to your right, if you're on the other side of the grandstands walking in the midway area, you will have no idea that there's cars on the racetrack. It just blocks out sound that well.
Yeah, the acoustics, Yeah,
and we had some friends actually that happened to be sitting nearby us, and they missed the start of the race because they didn't hear cars pacing around and thought the race was going to get delayed. It's just so weird. You wouldn't think about it for how loud the cars are, but it does the trick. So, yeah.
So let's start with Saturday Xfinity Series, and the first two stages were pretty boring, kind of. I mean, it was great for Brandon Jones.
It was a build-up. It was a build-up for the final stage. Like you said, great for Brandon Jones, but then he fell out of the race after some incidents on the backstretch. Stage 3, I think we all can agree, had the wildest Stage 3 in Auto Club Speedway history. We got to see how many? I think, Jeffrey, 3 restarts?
At least.
Yeah, there was a lot happening at once. I laughed, by the way. I have to fall back at Charlie throwing down the boring word here. Wow. Ouch.
Well, I mean, it was, it was, everybody's kind of waiting for Stage 3 to go crazy. So,
Well, it got pretty boring for us, too, after Stage 3 at a time because, well, not boring, maybe upsetting because...
A lot of yellow flag left.
Well, not just that, but Noah Gregson bit the dust and got caught up, similar fashion to Brandon Jones, and then we were like, well, damn, now it's all on Riley Herbst. And then it got exciting.
Yeah, so again, Noah and Riley, we have ties to. We've watched them work through the ranks, and that's why for Riley, like, we literally watched him racing at Irwindale Speedway a couple years ago, and yeah, it was mildly surprising, I thought. Both, I mean, Harrison Burton obviously with a great run, but getting the win, But Riley also, like, both these rookies performing the way that they did on what a lot of the drivers in the industry consider one of the toughest tracks because of how old it is and how much handling comes into play. But it's also one of Joe Gibbs' best tracks from the looks of it. So, yeah, I guess you had kind of a combination there. Riley made it interesting at the end as Harrison caught up to some lap traffic and also did a great job fighting with Austin Cindric. They had a nice clean battle for the second spot, and ultimately Harrison held them off. But yeah, it was a good day for, like you said, half the drivers that
because we were cheering on those two mainly. We do have others that we do root for, but those two are the big West Coast guys that we were cheering on. And Riley won a championship down the street, 45 minutes away, if that, at Irwindale Speedway. So he was the most hometown of the Ironic 2 from Las Vegas. And and Riley drove one hell of a race. But yeah, we had two guys we were really rooting on, and once Noah got taken out or gotten his issue, then we were all in on Riley. And if he's hearing this, and I want him to know, man, he impressed a lot of people. He impressed us because I think, like Jeffrey said, he's in here to run laps, bring home a clean car, finish in the top 10, and I think the whole team's happy. But I don't think anybody had him on the radar to be in second spot at the end of that race. But how well he ran the entire race, pit stops, green flags all through the stages, ran such a good, clean, strong race. It's got to make that team excited going into the next few big track races. Now, when Riley goes to Phoenix, he's going to be a short track guy already. So maybe that's going to add the pressure going into Phoenix. I'm not sure, but great job, Riley. Bummer for Noah. And that was Saturday.
Well, wait. Now you told me something, because Saturday we were sitting over in turn number one.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the best vantage point of the back straightaway. Right. Now we also, because of the layout where they put some of the big screens, didn't have the best view of the replay. So what we knew was there was contact between Ross Chastain and Noah down the back straightaway that basically finished off Noah. Now we both. Obviously, we were both like, well, great. Mm-hmm. We were like, did Ross take him out? No, you came back to me the next day and said, I looked at the replay and...
Well, hang on, you're not giving me enough credit.
Okay, all right,
I looked over at a bad angle of a screen and I said, Ross dumped Noah. And I hope that he does the same thing back at some point. Wait for him. Days of Thunder, change my tires. And then I watched the replay, and I'm sorry, but I was wrong. My first mistake I've ever made in my life. So I do hope that Noah can pick up some points going in. Now, was this a catastrophic issue? No. He won Daytona. He's good. But you still want all those points you can get. And I think those two are just going to have to race another day. And I hope Noah did.
How are you wrong, though? Tell me how you were wrong.
Well, interesting
what are you
enough
that you see from that.
Well, interesting enough, I heard on NASCAR radio in an interview that Ross was the one who said, I should have checked up, but I didn't. He was saying it because it hurt his car. It made him tight. If he did check up, we probably would have had not a caution. You could look at it that way, but I also think that obviously you're getting what you can on those restarts. It's a thing at Auto Club Speedway, and people run into each other at times. People slide up the track. People don't hit the brakes. And, if Ross did hit the brakes, how many spots would he have lost? So I'm neutral when it comes to that incident, but man, was I hotter than a popcorn's fart when I saw that replay at a bad angle.
No, so I just actually watched, and the reason I brought this up is I just rewatched the race today. Even when I go to the races, I'll typically go back and rewatch them. And I honestly actually came away from the replay watching the broadcast being like, I don't know where Tommy's rescinding his original thoughts. Now what I will say is the situation that was created there started by Noah making a move, what you could qualify as a bad move. He did come up, he chopped the nose of the 10, and then it was circumstantial that he then bounced off the 22, which led things into a worse scenario. But if you want to try and convince me that the 10 car also didn't come down, you're gonna be trying to convince me for this entire podcast, because I just, what it comes down to, though, is that I also can't sit here and be like, hey, if that is the case, and Ross Chastain did give a little payback on the back straightaway, Noah's not in a spot right now where he can complain about that. We saw what happened last weekend in Vegas between him and Myatt Snider.
Right.
So while I don't see it as neutral, I do see it as two drivers helped create a problem. But yeah, no, I definitely, it was, like you said, it's wild racing. At that point, I think they had done a couple restarts on tires. So, these were not the best restart conditions for these drivers. And it was actually some brought up on the broadcast too. So I will leave it at that. The Xfinity series, though, has continued to prove that it might be a very interesting one to watch, because it seems like there's a lot of players this year, and that could be fun.
And about that, so at Daytona, we were talking about the Big 3/Big 4 and who we thought was in that. Are you surprised that all the guys that were, we had pegged as the Big 4 were not really factors on Saturday, and that, JR Motorsports had a horrendous day?
It was horrendous. We even joked about it, I think, halfway through their turmoil, and then it continued to get worse. For one race, for that one race in particular, I guess I'm not. There were some mistakes that were made. Like, I was surprised at the Briscoe mistake, him just losing it out of turn 4, which goes to show again how much those cars were on edge. But there were a lot of mistakes in this race, whether it was from contact on track or because even Cindric had to make a weird late pit stop, and just a lot of the top players. I personally am surprised and impressed with Harrison. I didn't think that he was gonna be in victory lane this early. I wouldn't have been surprised to see him in victory lane this year, but now he's another one that adds his name to the mix. So yeah, that's my take, and I don't know if Tommy has a different one.
My take is, I wouldn't even know. I think you nailed it on the head. I'm speechless. No, I really think you nailed it on the head, and I don't have a take.
Well, he might have to work on his victory lane entrance.
That was fantastic. So that was
great. That was one of the highlights for sure.
Yeah, a lot of people actually, unfortunately, I haven't seen. I haven't gotten past the victory portion of this to see how it shows on the broadcast. But that was a little golden nugget, a moment that anybody that wasn't in that vicinity, I think, would have missed.
Which we were.
Yeah, we were right in that area, sitting over near turn 1, and it was beautiful, because you have Harrison there. He tried to do a U-turn a little too soon, and the tow truck guys, who we might know because James Towing.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of those guys also work out at Irwindale Speedway. And we're just sitting there going, what are they doing? And I don't know what the conversation was, but Harrison climbs out of the car. He's stuck over in turn 1, not even in victory lane. But what I loved about it was that the fans were joking with Harrison, and Harrison was joking right back with the fans. Someone yelled out, "You can't park there." And Harrison held up his hands like, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." And then someone else yells, "You can park wherever you want. You just won." And Harrison's like fist bumping. It was just a one of those odd moments that shouldn't have happened but did.
And then the race,
lot of people would have missed it.
Yeah, and then the race ran so long that the network needed to close the show, and so Regan had to run over from victory lane, ready to get the winning interview again, which is still weird to me how the network thought this was a good idea. Anyways, so that happened, and it was great to see in front of us. So from that, we kind of talked about bad moves at the wrong time. We go from that to the Cup race, and early on, one of the guys that we're sitting next to happens to be a pretty good Kyle Larson supporter. Went from, man, I'm having a fun weekend here at Auto Club Speedway 2.
This race
never
This race sucks.
Through FedEx again. And
I mean, normally I blame it on McDonald's because of the McDonald's curse, and if you guys don't realize, a McDonald's sponsored car has not won since Jimmy Spencer in 1993. Almost killed Bill Elliott's career, and I guess he
ate too much.
They just don't like Asian people either, apparently. But this time, it wasn't all McDonald's fault, because damn FedEx, they treated Larson's car like they treat their packages.
Yeah, the one day they deliver on Sunday, they wrinkled the. So you want to talk about your experience there, because we talked about our guy Noah getting in an incident. You go ahead and talk about what was your emotions during all that. By the way, Kyle did come to visit our work
he did,
days before.
Yeah. Well, maybe I used up all my luck in 2020 when he won Chili Bowl, and I kind of said, I don't care what happens the rest of the year, which is kind of a lie, but it's been a little bit rough since then. But yeah, he dropped by the Lucas Oil Map TV office on Thursday. Classy guy. We do sponsor his dirt program, and really nice guy. Signed autographs, took some photos. Shout out to JP Josh Peterman for hooking it up with the hot pass. But yeah, that's a funny story. We'll get to that story later on.
Yeah, there's more to that.
Yeah, there's more to this. But anyways, yeah, so that was all good. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I understand, you got to push and blah, blah, blah. But to me, it was just way too aggressive for that early on in the race. I mean, we didn't even finish stage 1, and the 42 car is already wrecked. And it was dumb.
Now, for my highlight's sake, I would have loved to see Larson seal the deal and hook Hamlin into the wall, because that would have just made...
You were all about payback, weren't you?
Well, I got a reason for that. I'll get to here in a second. But I was really hoping that every year we would see, like, advertisements for the race and see like a rivalry type video. But Larson didn't get the job done, and...
he's too nice.
And Hamlin went on to finish.
He's too classy for that.
So why I was hoping that the hook really happened, and the hook is a bad thing to do in any motorsports, whether it's go-karts at low speed or almost 190 miles an hour going into turn 1. Never is a good thing to do on a driver. I always discourage it, and I hate to see that happen when people get upset. However, here's why I was hoping, because we have never seen Kyle Larson be the bad guy. He is, other than him taking someone out, C.E. Falk at Daytona in a late model. But when Kyle gets done wrong, he never shows emotion. It's as if, and I've seen on social media, people are like, well, the guy doesn't care about NASCAR. This is his job. He wants to play on sprint cars. That's where he gets emotional. I do want to see a day where Kyle Larson just loses his shit and goes and runs into somebody on track, or goes and confronts a guy on pit road, because it's getting to the point now where, I'm thinking that he's at the mercy of other people. When he's going to get shoved and moved around, and Hamlin and Larson might be friends, but Earnhardt and other people were friends too, and things got on track, and Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace, how many times have we seen that? So,
okay, so enough about Larson being pushed around because he's Asian, and let's get to the actual race. And you know what? Maybe Hamlin thought that Larson had coronavirus and just, I'm putting this guy out of the race.
You are just hammering on Hamlin, aren't you? Hammerin' Hamlin. That's a good nickname.
I can't hammer on Stenhouse anymore, so I got to hammer on somebody, right?
Ooh, yeah.
Now,
So,
why can't
should I tell that story now?
Yeah, I'm curious.
All right. Well, okay. So, as some of you guys know, that I may have been hard on Ricky Stenhouse the last 3 years, maybe just a little bit, possibly.
I don't know if it's the last 3, but okay.
Oh yeah, you're right. Actually,
I think you're underselling.
Yeah, I am underselling, but it's one of those. Oh yeah, that's one reason I didn't like him either. The damn Scott Speed incident. But anyways, so my hot pass, which was through JP, which is Kyle's manager assistant, he was like, "I'll hook it up. Just give me your contact info and I'll make it happen." So then I text him my name, info, and at 6 p.m. on Thursday, I get a text from a number I don't know saying, "Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has invited you to the Fontana race. Click here for your pass." And I immediately thought, somebody's trolling me.
Somebody's putting you up to this.
Or Ricky is giving me a pass so he could kill me.
Oh.
Both are valid reasons, I think. Ricky doesn't really seem to be that kind of guy, but you never know. Maybe he's just had enough of your crap.
Yeah, which, if I were him, maybe I wouldn't blame him. But so I reluctantly accepted because I'm cheap and it was free. And what can I say? The pass is real and I'm still alive. So
And Ricky's not that bad of a guy.
yeah, so he drives a Chevy now too. That probably helps for
Right.
me.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't hate Ricky Stenhouse anymore. So I guess now I could hate Hamlin.
Yes, there we go. Hamlin delivered some hate.
So I guess in the end, the only all you have to do to make me not dislike you is just grab a Chevy and get me a hot pass.
Boom.
And we're good.
There you go, folks. If those of you wondering how to get on Charlie's good side before you get on his bad side.
Free stuff always works, usually.
Mhm.
So
I thought Sunday's race, I thought it was good. I thought it kind of surprised me because the restarts were awesome as usual. But we didn't get to see a lot of restarts. There was not a lot of cautions. It got a lot more spread out than I assumed it to be. I also know that I was making an assumption based off of maybe Vegas and based off of maybe the car setup and package. But did it seem to you, Jeffrey, that it got stretched out, or were you kind of just indifferent, thinking we're going to see what we're going to see?
I was not surprised to see the front runners spread out the way that they did, because again, we're coming off of, wasn't it last year when Martin Truex won by 10 seconds?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like this is something we've never seen before at Fontana. On the same front, and it's something I've said for years, is that some of the best racing you're going to see at Fontana is when you're sitting in the grandstands, and that's because there's a lot of racing happening outside of the top 10. For a while, we had multiple big packs of cars, big packs being like, 5 or 6 cars that were racing for position, hanging out together. But to me, it just looked like, once again, not saying this is a bad thing, but the track is so hard on the handling side that there's only so much these drivers are able to do. Which is one thing that a lot of fans want to see, is that the cars are so hard to drive, that these are the situations that, they're in. But yeah, no, I mean, I was a little surprised that, again, how fast things did go on Sunday. It almost, some people might not realize how close we were to having a potential like green, white, checkered, because Blaney obviously had a tire issue. I believe Dylan also had one on the last lap. So there were a couple of tires were at their limits at the end of that race. And so I was thinking, we might actually end up with a caution here. We didn't, but that's okay. It was still a good race. I thought the attendance, the turnout, which, by the way, want to call this out, media is always on top of Fontana about their turnout, and what haven't we really seen anyone talk about?
Turnout.
Yeah,
the attendance.
It was that we parked in the back 9 when it came to to general parking, and we were sitting amongst a bunch of race fans, and you'd look around and maybe there are some rows of seats somewhere else, but I would say 98% capacity.
Yes.
I mean, that infield was packed.
I did not expect that many people to be there,
Right.
given how the weather looked the entire week leading up. I figured that there were going to be people that maybe had free tickets and were going to show, or people that were going to buy at the window and went, no way. I thought we were going to be hurting, and we didn't. And it's so funny because this is where I call it out. Everyone's so quick to jump on a track like Fontana when they have what seems to be bad attendance, which last year I felt like some of those images were taken at convenient times. But when the track has a good turnout, do you hear anyone say positive things?
No.
I haven't heard a single person point out how things looked at the track.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, it's like, oh, it's not negative, so let's not report it. Guys, here on Racing Foolz, we tell you the facts.
Right.
Keep it real, man. So yeah, you might be upsetting some of the boomers, Jeffrey, but we just tell the truth.
Poor people.
And the thing too is, they didn't just show up for the start and leave. They stayed the whole race.
And I think the weather had a lot to do with that too, because people, we were all somewhat. I mean, it was cooler, which is nicer than sitting in the sun baking away. But I just thought that the experience was good, start to finish in that race. Seems like fans were enjoying it. We do our typical cheat, and we get the AAA discounted seats, and then we go to the top at the end of stage one.
Yeah, we like to walk around. If you don't like to be on your feet for 4 hours, it's
Right. Don't do our thing.
for you.
Yeah.
I also thought it was real nice just to kind of see, because I don't think we've really seen this before at Fontana, how much the local fans embraced Jimmy Johnson
Yes.
for this event. I don't recall him being like as cheered on as he was this particular weekend. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. And back to the race for a moment. So it did get spread out, but those first 15 laps were really, really entertaining. And that was when Jimmy, was battling for lead too. And so back to your point about the crowd, when he was taking the lead or in the lead, they
Or
were getting
near the lead,
Yeah, they were really, really amped up. So, if this is going to be it for Jimmy, he had a great send off. And I read a stat that he's finished every single lap of every Fontana race he's competed in.
That's good.
Which is pretty unbelievable.
I guess he also was 10. So he led laps on Sunday, but he came up 10 laps short of hitting the 1,000 laps led at Fontana mark.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yep.
Come back next year. Jimmy Johnson gonna lead 10 laps and pull it off.
Well, I don't know. Part of me is like, I don't want to see him pull a Mark Martin where it's like, it's your last race,
Right.
but it isn't. So, or a David Reagan, I guess, or Brendan Gaughan. So back to the race, Alex Bowman. Well, he won, but for the most of the race, it was the Bowman and Blaney show.
Yeah.
So, the 88 won the race, but the 88 and the 12 have shown a lot of speed this year, guys. So is this a surprise to you? And do you foresee this continuing?
The Chevy thing to me is a surprise. Now, I do know that they got an upgrade, and now is their time to prove that they needed it, and they're doing so. But we have three. I know we've had two legit season races and one, fantasy race at the Daytona 500, but we've had all three manufacturers win a race, and great parity throughout the season so far. But Alex Bowman, he has been coming on as of late, and good to see the Tucson, Arizona guy get the win. What do you think, Jeffrey?
I think this is, from what we've seen with Blaney and Bowman, I feel like both of those have proven that they're going to be contenders potentially for the championship. The question usually comes into play because of how long these seasons are. We sometimes see it where a team either has a great start or a great finish. The question is going to be, how long can they hold on to that? Right now, Bowman and Blaney are obviously loving life and doing well. Blaney is probably still not loving it quite as much because he's had nothing but, it seems, misfortune on the end of the races.
Every race, yeah.
Yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe both those drivers have finally hit their comfort zone. A year before we completely changed the car that they're driving.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they are able to maintain this. I guess I'm kind of a flip of the coin though, because I also wouldn't be surprised if around the halfway point of the season maybe they fall off, and it seems like a lot of people are picking on Toyotas at this stretch of the of the year, saying, well, are they really showing a lot of speed or whatnot? But we've seen them come and go. We saw Stewart Haas Racing kind of do some similar thing last year too, with Kevin Harvick, where everyone's like, they're not winning, and then they ended up finishing off the year.
Right.
I mean, Harvick finished off the year good. It was, I guess you could say, debatable on the rest, but I don't know.
I asked Tommy at what point in the season, if the Gibbs Toyotas haven't won on a non-plate track, would you press the panic button? And he thought at least give it till Bristol. What do you think, Jeffrey?
Is that the night race at Bristol, Tommy?
Ooh, that'd be pretty bad. No.
I think that at that point you just bail on 2020 and work on the new car.
Right.
They just park. They don't even show up to the next event. They're just like, yeah, we're done. Thanks for having us. Let's see. I'm looking at the schedule. I would probably. So Tommy's saying Bristol if Joe Gibbs doesn't hit victory lane before Bristol.
Well, on a non-plate track. So yeah, like we don't count Daytona because Daytona's a lottery. So
right. I'd almost go probably closer to. I don't know. I mean, because of the season they had last year and how good it was, I could see why people, maybe even by Bristol, be like, oh man, we're in trouble. I'd still give it about halfway through the year. I'd almost say Michigan or Sonoma, 15 or 16 races in. Maybe I'd reel it back a little bit. I'll say Charlotte. How about Charlotte?
Damn,
if they haven't won by Charlotte, then there's something up. That only adds 5 or 6 races from Bristol, but that's halfway through the regular season. I just think that, sometimes these manufacturers not only have all the right pieces in place, but also get a little lucky on body modifications or where NASCAR tries to make things, fair and even. We'll see where they're at, but it doesn't seem like the Toyota drivers are panicking yet. So
I do find it funny though that we kind of felt like they weren't really a factor for a lot of the race, but Kyle Busch still did get second. And
he did.
So it's like, it's not like he was,
Truex drove from the back all the way up to, top 3.
Road raging all the way.
Road raging the whole time.
On his teammates.
Those teams aren't dumb, that's for sure. They've proven that they can get a car from average to good. But it just, over time.
Here's why, though. Like, here's why, for me, it's not so much of a panic, is how many Toyotas are in the field? 5, right? 5 or 6? Like, compared to everybody else, if everyone's picked it up, like, it shouldn't be so crazy to us that, oh wow, they struggled to get a victory, but again, that's me not comparing to what they did last year. They just had an incredible season.
To be fair, they're probably going to win this race coming up in Phoenix. All the drivers are good there.
Well, Harvick might have something to say about that.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. But I think all the drivers are good there within the Toyota camp. Daniel Suarez won a championship there at Phoenix. So that's all I got. Yeah. You want to go story time now?
I did want to ask about rookies.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's talk rookies.
So, you have a lot. We're 3 races in. All of 3 races in. It's not even 10% of the season. And you already have people seemingly writing off the 95 and the 41, which is ridiculous.
Right.
Right.
So let's get your guys' take on this.
Well, I think that it was all Christopher Bell's fault for running over that bolt. The kid needs to just learn how to get laps, and what is he doing driving over debris? So,
well, it was a pretty big bolt. Tommy.
Yeah, how could you not see that coming not only off a car, but he center punched it. Like, he didn't even try to avoid that bolt. He saw it and he said...
Aimed for it.
Yeah, he aimed for it. Bullseye targeted. So, Christopher Bell, he might need to go back to Xfinity. So...
Yeah.
No, I don't know how could you... Yeah.
It's just
I'm speechless. I don't
it's
know
the
what...
It's the bitter Matty D
Right.
fans.
Exactly.
I'm not surprised to see Christopher at least struggle a little bit. If anything, I see the struggles of the rookies almost as an encouraging thing. Because they're all, Reddick right now of the big three from last year, but of all the rookie classes, the one he's outperforming everybody. But Reddick also, I think, has the most cup experience.
Right. Yep.
Of all of them. Save for, I'm trying to remember, John Hunter obviously finished off the year also. So that's why I think what helped John also be kind of more up to speed than Cole, who hasn't driven a car, one of these cup cars. He didn't drive in the entire 2019 season, touch a cup car. Christopher Bell's never touched a cup car. So for both, especially the 95 and the 41, I feel like both of those rookies, they're still figuring out these cars. And the thing is, I've thought about this a lot. A lot of people are going to compare this rookie class to ones from 20 years ago. But what's the big difference? 20 years ago, these drivers were able to get probably 1,000 laps under a cup car before they ever made it to Daytona.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had testing available. Everyone was able to just jump in a car and, okay, let's go, whatever teams have money, let's go spend it. These rookies do not have that advantage, and I think that's one reason why we still have looked at, man, why do so many rookies struggle, like not jump into the sport like they used to? I just think that's part of it, is that these drivers don't have the experience, and with all the same with the team rules, it used to be where teams could run a rookie car throughout the year to get their drivers ready, and even that's gone away with the charter system and owner. I think there's a rule that they can't do that anymore, which is why you have Stuart Haas, who essentially put out a car for Cole Custer run in 2018, but it was through Rick Ware Racing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just something that people need to factor in, that we should not expect the rookies to pick it up as fast as they used to, because they're still at a deficit of laps even to this point in the season from drivers that did come in and hit the ground running back in the day. And plus, I also think maybe it's also a sign of just how good the field is now. I'm not saying that the field was anything to sneeze at 20 years ago, but maybe this just, on the quality side, maybe it's just continued to be better and better. Oh, just throwing it out there. Someone might not like that, but
yeah, that's a good point, because like iRacing and Sims, they're great, but they could only do so much, and they can't substitute for actual experience. And that situation where there's limited testing or no testing allowed, it's not like it's affecting just Cole Custer and Christopher Bell today. It's affected a lot of drivers in a lot of series over the years. Technically, when Michael Andretti failed in F1, he had like zero testing going in. And it's like, of course he's going to fail.
Right.
He's supposed to fail.
Mm-hmm.
If you could succeed without any practice, then it's like, maybe it's just too easy.
Right.
So you guys were talking about full crowds, nearly sellout crowds, kind of some of the racing getting strung out. Did this have the feel of like an old school Fontana race? Because that's kind of the way a lot of them were before that track got worn in.
I don't know. Back in the day when they first started, this was also a 250 lap race.
Well, a lot of races have been shortened. Dover has been shortened. Pocono, I think, has been shortened.
Yeah.
So,
but I feel, you mean as far as the hype goes?
The hype
everything?
and the feel and the look.
Right.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of when we went to opening weekend, Tommy.
Right.
It was a lot of excitement, and it was cool to see that crowd there, actually, because we've had a lot of races where the crowd hasn't been there, especially if you went to an IndyCar race. There,
right.
The last IndyCar race had like 15,000 at most, and you can imagine at Fontana 15,000. It looks like nothing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a different look and everything. I felt like everybody was hyped up and ready. I think it would help, too, is that it's so early into the year. So we've had now we're so little into the season where people are excited to get to the racetrack, and I think that the West Coast Swing definitely helps. I mean, there's probably people who go to all three of the West Coast Swing, and they don't miss driving the 8 hours to and from at most. So I felt like the hype was there. The crowd was great. Even like Jeffrey mentioned, the weather was not looking good leading up. It worked out. You couldn't have told me that even an hour before the drop of the green flag. But it was I felt like it was a great experience. All in all, everybody was tailgating. Everybody was having a good time. People were at the souvenir trucks late in the day and early in the morning, and tons of people walking up and down pit road and through the infield. So,
Can we talk about that for a moment?
Sure.
Love the access. Love that all we needed was a grandstand ticket to walk into the garage area. Like, not like the hot pass type of garage area, but to get in behind the building, behind the pits. But it would be nice if they could just figure out, do they want us back there or not? Because we would get back there, and then they would say, you can't go back to where you came from. And I'm like, what? and this was a common issue. So we walked all the way back up to the, there's a guardrail fence. We can see the garage area. And then we basically turned around, and the same people that let us through said, you can't go this way if you don't have access. And we're like, what are you talking about if we don't have access? That's the grandstands. That's how we get back. I imagine that management is going to hear about that, because the poor guards had to deal with that all day from a lot of people.
And we weren't the only ones.
No, we weren't. I heard when we walked back there initially, there was somebody who was like, what the heck? And I was like, oh, should we keep going? But we did. And we ended up getting back. But yeah. But again, it was cool. I think, Tommy, you were about to say something before I cut you off.
No, I was just going to... I know Charlie has a story about his opening day experience, and I can allude to some of that going in from that and then transition over to Phoenix.
I feel like this Fontana maybe had more hype than normal. I don't know if it's the Jimmy thing. I don't know what it is, but kind of like the opening weekend. And, opening weekend, it's hard to imagine now, but that first race actually was sold out. Mm-hmm. And so I couldn't go to the Sunday race.
Pre-race, it was sold out. Pre-Friday.
And they were not giving away tickets. Mm-hmm. So we went to the Saturday, which had the first race, the Winston West race, and then the IROC race. And I mainly just remember even just pulling up to the grandstand. You guys have been used to going to racetracks up to that point, in your life where you went to Fontana. Whereas for me, the only other racetrack I'd been to until 1997 was Saugus, and that was once.
Yeah.
So you can imagine
Big
me seeing Saugus once at age 9, and then all of a sudden, 2 years later, I'm seeing this 2-mile speedway that just looks like the biggest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And it was a pretty fantastic memory.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And then we were both in the stands for that IROC race, and old Darrell Waltrip made it exciting every lap.
Yeah. Well, before that, Alex Zanardi made it exciting because Alex Zanardi managed to crash 2 cars in that race.
Yeah.
He's the only person in the history of IROC to crash 5 cars in 4 races. So after he was out of the race, after crashing his second car, there were 11 cars left, and there was a 10-car pack, and there was Darrell Waltrip. Mm-hmm. Poor DW had lost the draft, but every time he came by, it was like an earthquake.
Yeah, so he would come around, and I know Jeffrey wasn't there, but this is probably a story that's not very well known, but he would come around, off the draft, and just losing time every lap, obviously. And everybody would cheer for Darrell Waltrip by stomping their feet. And so multiple laps, I mean, we're talking probably 30 laps back-to-back of this. He even got lapped and everybody was cheering.
Yeah.
To the point where then we went to go, my family on this same day, went to go to the souvenir trucks to check out what all they had to sell too. And maybe they had some discounts on the way out, who knows. So we go, as we're going back to the parking lot, we walk through the souvenir trucks, and they're all closed, except for a few of them. And one of them was closing down, and we're like, why are you guys closing down early? And they're like, well, we weren't sure if that was an earthquake or what was going on. We just heard everything rumbling at the same time. They thought, and all these souvenir truck people, they're all from the Carolinas and stuff. They don't know. And so they just heard the rumbling, and they don't know that there is usually shaking during that time. They just heard rumbling, so they must have thought that every 40 seconds an earthquake went by. So that was a funny story that both of us, ironically witnessed and experienced. But I want to transition that to our Phoenix discussion.
Wait, hold on a second. You know what time it is? It's time for a commercial.
It's time to pump the brakes.
Because Crown Performance is your leader in steel braided brake lines.
When performance matters most, the pros trust Crown Performance. Constructed from Teflon, Kevlar, and stainless steel, Crown Performance brake lines exceed all industry standards, will hold up against the harshest conditions, and provide ultimate stopping power, whether it's for the street or the track. We offer customized sizes and colors to fit any application. Visit crownperformance.com to learn more. crownperformance.com. crownperformance.com.
So now it's on to Phoenix, guys. The last race, the West Coast Swing. Let's get some quick thoughts on predictions before telling some more cool stories.
Predictions. I think, going out on a limb here, but I really don't think I am. I think Bowman might double down. The reason why is because last time I was in Phoenix, I almost saw him win in this very same car that he drove this past weekend that he did pick up the win in. So I think Bowman is going to be the showman here this weekend. What do you think, Jeffrey?
Well, you guys mentioned it earlier that it's hard to bet against Harvick at this track. Kyle Busch has been mounting the stats in his direction. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. This could be, I guess, the weekend to really pay attention to those Toyotas and see where everything's happening. But, looking at the points, it's interesting. I'm still curious to see where Matt DiBenedetto is going to end up. He had a really good run at a short track, maybe more short tracks last year, but we know at Bristol he had a great run. Maybe with that team, maybe he can make, as a dark horse, make some noise on Sunday. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like with the parity we've had at the beginning of the season, it's hard to really pinpoint a favorite for this race, but guess we'll see. Maybe Ryan Blaney finally shakes that monkey.
Oh, you just took my pick. I wouldn't say he's the favorite, but I think technically if you change the last 5 laps, oh no, he wasn't going to win Fontana, but if you change the last 5 laps of every race so far this year, he would have won 2 and finished second in the third one. So this could have easily been the Ryan Blaney show, if not for fate and destiny. And, he did get second here last year at this race, the first Phoenix race. So it wouldn't shock me to see the 12 in victory lane this weekend. But now enough about that. Let's get to the good parts. Let's get to the parts that everybody's been waiting almost an hour to hear. Your Phoenix stories.
Ooh, some Phoenix stories. Jeffrey and I have so many. They're not all going to make it into this show. However, have you ever been to Phoenix, Charlie?
Not yet. Hopefully this year for championship weekend with you guys.
What a big weekend, too, because these teams, they have to really come in here. I'm guessing a lot of these teams just go off the wall on setups, and if it doesn't work, they've got one more shot, and they got to hope that they're in position to get that title at the end of the year. But since you haven't been to Phoenix, and hopefully we get the chance to at the end of the year, I think it'd be great. Phoenix stories. Now, Jeffrey and I, we've gone to Phoenix a handful of times now. We've worked at Phoenix once, and we were asked to work in the media room at Phoenix International, and we had the time available, and we're like, well, work and NASCAR race? Why not? Well, let's give it a shot. I mean, we were probably going to be in the stands anyways, but we're going to get paid to be there. That sounds good. Let's do it. So we go to the media room, and we start work on Thursday, and, this is during the time where it's kind of Xfinity and truck practice. This was at the end of the year, I believe, in the November event. And it's practice day, nothing crazy. But we're just kind of getting the tour and the lay of the land on what we're going to be doing Friday through Sunday. And so we're in the media center. We get to see a few guys, literally a few, meaning Claire B. Lang and Bob Pockris. Nobody else is there yet. Friday morning rolls around and everybody's there. I mean, this place is a booming little city in the media room. And we're doing our jobs, and part of our jobs is to make sure that the media people are the most pampered people you would ever see at a racetrack. And what I'm saying about that is we were loading the refrigerator full of drinks. Now, that's kind of to be expected. But there was a little trailer outside that had all the drinks, all the Coca-Cola products that they were sponsored by at the time. And also part of our job was every single piece of paper, every single stat that was to come across that print room from NASCAR or from A through Z, we had to print, put them in their respective areas. Now, you think that's good? No. It got better. We would not only put them in these categorized alphabetical and numerical order on the wall all over the building, so any press guy can get up out of his chair, see what he needs, grab it, and take it back to use it in their reporting. Nope. We had to also take that stack of paper and go through each table and give them the paperwork, so much so that at one point I turned to Bob Pockris, giving him the paper probably of order of pit stall selection before qualifying, if they're on points and if the wind is blowing at 3 miles an hour and the sun is 75 degrees.
He's not exaggerating.
To the point where I walked by Bob Pockris and put down a paper who he had a I mean, you've seen the memes and stuff of like office workers that have, papers to the ceiling. Well, he was that. That was Bob. Everybody else would throw that other paper away. They knew they didn't need it. No, Bob kept it because he didn't know what he was going to need, because he was going to be there till about 4 a.m. and then go back to work at 5. And I walked by Bob and I said, here's another pointless piece of paper that you're probably excited to get. And he looked up at me and just started laughing, because at that moment, Bob, he didn't smirk. He was so into his job and never left his eyes off of that laptop. Like, he knew that I got it. Like, these are ridiculous papers. But yeah, these PR people, they were catered food. They were given all the drinks that they could ever need. They were handed papers. The only time they would get up to leave where their desk was to go into the pits to get a story, go pee-pee, and then come back from getting their stories and notes and stuff. But that was a whole side of things that I never knew. Like, I figured, okay, here's a room under air conditioning that media people can hammer out stories and kind of be their working office. Holy cow, I gave me a whole new appreciation, by the way, of the media staff at every racetrack. But it also gave me a whole new appreciation for the media people, because they are so dedicated to what they do. And I think anybody who works legitimate media inside the media room deserves, and they're not making much, but I think they deserve both thumbs up and major kudos, because they hammer out. I mean, Jeffrey and I, we would work after hours that we didn't get paid for, but we would work after hours, way after hours. I'm saying we're leaving, the races ended at 6 p.m. We would leave at 1 a.m. and there was still lights on, and Bob Pockris was probably, like usual, the last one to leave, but the person before him still left about 15 minutes early.
Yeah, it was like Tommy said. Like we've cracked up since, because sometimes we do see where a media person will call out something about a racetrack, and I roll my eyes when that happens, because I'm like, oh no. Like, if there's one group that also has it better than just about anybody, it is the media people. They are working hard. But like Tommy said, at least from our experience and us working there, like here's your meals, here's your drinks, here's your paper, here's another cord for your power. Like there's
right.
And again, like they're trying to report and whatnot. And obviously the track also wants to make these people happy because they don't want them saying negative things about their own track. So it was such an eye-opening experience. Tommy mentioned the hours that we had very early in the morning. You know, we'd be getting there before the sun would rise. We would leave there a few hours before the sun would rise again. There was a serenity to it, though. It was really nice just kind of being there in the garage area before things got going, before cars started up, and just kind of being there at the track. And it kind of reminded you of those like Days of Thunder scenes where like the bird goes flying off the grandstands.
Yep.
One thing I thought was funny, and I put some thought into this, but not enough thought, is there's also this like front office area where all the stuff gets printed out, and it's sometimes it feels like, you know, the stock market room where papers are flying and people are trying to get somewhere. Literally. And so we were working there obviously every day, and Sunday morning I'm sitting there, and I remember I was going through some papers, looking down, and it kind of crossed my mind. This was a race that was being broadcast by NBC, and it crossed my mind. I'm like, oh, you know, I should keep an eye out for like Alan Bestwick or whatever. I've always been a fan of Alan's announcing, and it just popped in my head like, oh yeah, I should keep an eye out. And at that moment, I look up, and right in front of me is Alan Bestwick looking through his you know, all these different shelves of paper, just rounding up his stuff. And my brain's still like, oh, there's Alan Bestwick. So I'm like, oh, well, I'll at least say hi. And the problem was, it was still way before my brain was working at this point in the morning.
Right.
And so I went to say good morning. And as I was starting to say it, I started thinking to myself, is it morning still, or have we made it past noon? I don't know what time it is. So all I ended up saying, I look at Alan and I go, good. And Alan stops what he's doing, looks at me, kind of just waiting, and I just nod at him at that point, and he smiles and nods back and goes back, and I just go, there it was. That was my impression I made on Alan Bestwick just now. Good.
We still haven't been called from NBC or Alan Bestwick.
Go figure. It was just yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a fun time working the media room. We got to work Victory Lane. We got to work a whole bunch of things, and those probably are stories for down the road. One more thing, this is my last story, since we're talking about Blaney and Penske doing so well. Some of them, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. For the beginning of 2020, is a Penske rental car story. So on Sunday, we were packing up, locking the doors, shutting the lights off, heading out of Phoenix. We're all going home Monday. And when the Xfinity and truck teams leave, especially the Xfinity series, that lot just kind of turns into overflow parking / free parking, like not as far away parking for anybody else who has a hot pass or whatever. And there was this one stray silver Dodge Grand Caravan just sitting in the infield parking lot, and everybody should have been gone by now. The only people that should have been at the track were us and the campers. That's it. Nobody else. And then a phone call came through someone's cell phone that was, managing it, and they're like, does anybody see a silver Dodge Grand Caravan? And we're like, yup, it's right there. And whereas we pointed, she goes, okay, because they got on the plane and they found the keys to the car in their backpack. And that was a Team Penske team that were hauling ass to the airport, obviously, to get back to Carolinas. And, yeah, I wonder what the enterprise bill on that one was.
Yeah, I wonder when somebody had to tell Roger, hey, so we forgot a rental car in Phoenix. I wonder what his reaction was.
Right. What's his bill for over $1,000 for this rental car? Oh, yeah. I got the keys, but the car's in Phoenix.
They must have thought it was a tight squeeze to get back to the airport. Like, man, I don't remember it being this bad when we got here.
So the only thing that I can thought of is that this guy who had the keys to the vehicle just jumped in someone else's vehicle to get to the airport, forgetting that he was in charge of that vehicle that he left to Phoenix. And what a surprise, man. I mean, you can't do anything when you're already at the airport.
Yeah, it's
not
done.
like you're going to turn around and say, I'll catch you on Monday. So good stuff from Phoenix, and looking forward to it this weekend. Obviously, the final of the West Coast Swing, the next stop in California would be the Sonoma race after in June. So Phoenix is always exciting. I think their new design / rotation of the racetrack still plays in my mind as confusing.
Yes.
But that's because all three of us are grown up knowing which side is the front stretch versus the back stretch. I'm
still confused. There's no grass where the kink or the dog leg was or is now.
Right. So, but it's still exciting. Again, one of those tracks that are insane on the restarts, and we'll see what happens. And I am curious. I'm going into this Phoenix race thinking we are going to see some wild setups because they are literally dialing in for the future, but only 4 people are going to be going for that future.
Yep.
So everybody's going to be stressing out. So I'm excited. I think this weekend's going to be fun.
So I'm not sure when people are going to listen to this podcast, but Low Budget TV has a pretty big race coming up in March 21st.
Yeah, March 21st weekend, we'll be at Kern County Raceway Park for the 6th annual Winter Showdown, part of the Spears SRL Southwest Tour and Spears Manufacturing Modifieds. Jeff and I picking up that series this year and going to be streaming it live on Spears Racing TV. Don't miss it. And if you do, don't worry. It'll be on MAV TV at a later date. Always looking forward to that. I think we'll probably have a podcast before that, and maybe we can get a driver that's going to be competing in that on our next show. Be fun to get it all in perspective leading up to the 6th annual. Now, there's been some names that have won it before. Bubba Pollard, who we saw racing in Florida not too long ago. He's won twice. Derek Thorne's won. But there's also been a winner that people know from iRacing or people know from short track racing in the Midwest. But a lot of people know racing in ARCA and Xfinity is Ty Majeski. He won the weirdest Winter Showdown, but he still won.
I mean, if you win the race, though, and nobody saw it, did it really
happen? Well, everybody saw it, but they were all waiting under lights.
Lane. Yeah, the lights came on at that point.
Yeah.
Everyone was gone, too. So
yeah, so the big names of short track racing will be at Kern, and we're going to be happy and to bring it to you, and hopefully everybody else is able to join in and enjoy the fun with us.
So I have a parting topic. We'll make it a very quick topic.
Sure.
What are your guys' thoughts? It was announced today that the Busch Clash is going to be on a road course.
We could talk a lot of news.
I mean, so
if we're going with this one, go ahead.
When I first saw it on my feed, I immediately called Tommy and I said, "Is today April Fool's?" And when he said no, I'm like, "Obviously you heard." And Tommy didn't seem as surprised about it as I was, but I have no problem with it. I think it's a cool idea. I just think it kind of came out of left field because if anything was going to get turned into a road course race, I thought the All-Star race was going to get turned into a road course race before the Clash. So I'm good with it. It's something that I've always wanted to try in iRacing, a cup car around the Roval at Daytona. So now I get to see it in real life.
I do wonder. I've seen people saying, what a great way to sign off on the current generation of race car. So are they going to let the whole field just go out there and run what you brung? Like, hey, you don't have to bring them home pretty. Like, this is the last race. This is going to be a 43, no charters, no nothing. Just run it. Run it into the ground. If you crash it into the tire barriers, we're not throwing a caution. Jump out.
Carl Long, get your car out.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, and the main reason is because I know it's that race where it's separate from Daytona. There's no link to Daytona other than the racetrack itself. It's really a party postseason. It's a postseason
It's going to be a whole week party now.
Right.
Actually, are you guys surprised it's on a Tuesday, or do you think this is like a test to see if weekday NASCAR works?
Could be.
I think so. I think it is, yeah.
I am surprised.
Especially
but
Tuesday night, by the way.
Yeah.
I was less surprised when I did hear that it was also Super Bowl Sunday. That it would have been
I did not know that.
Yeah, so this might just be a really weird test.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I'm kind of in a I guess where I sit with it is I'm like okay with it and like okay cool, and at the same time I feel like I hate it. Like on I guess the traditional side, it's like it's the Clash. I enjoy seeing that whole part of restrictor plate racing. You got a bunch of cars that anyone in the field can win. Where I just don't feel like you're going to have that anyone in the field can win feel to this. It's just going to feel like potentially a lot less cars in
like a more
road course
normal race. Yeah.
Right. So that's where I'm like, eh. However, what they might also do is not tell anybody until with 2 laps to go, throw out the red, invert the entire field, and then say, now have fun. You don't need these cars ever.
I mean, to be fair, this is the race that lately has changed a lot with, entrance, availability and how things are set up.
It's kind of jumped the shark because it used to just be pole winners only.
Right.
And it was like a 10-lap race, right?
Yeah, it was.
And then they tried everything they can to make sure that Danica could be in it. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, if you don't make this race, you really suck.
Yeah, if you're not in top 20 in points, then you're one of those. But
I'm okay with them trying it out. But I think I'm also kind of hoping that this is a 1-year thing and they go back to running, because the other thing that they keep talking about is the next gen car. That's going to be its first race. Yeah. So I think it sounds like this is also NASCAR's way of saying, hey, instead of worrying about getting these cars all souped up for a restrictor plate race that you're never going to use again, let's save the next gen cars for Daytona, because it is going to be probably a very tight schedule getting those cars ready for the 2021 season.
Plus, I alluded back to when I was talking to Charlie about this, that these cars are going to be so new for everybody and all the teams that, remember when the current generation car came out, they were wrecking in practice and wrecking in the duels and the Clash, and they were backed against the wall saying, if you crash again, there's no parts.
Yeah.
There's no parts available. Everybody here that has a car on property, that's it. So we probably would have that issue again if they all wadded up in the Clash with these new cars, and the story goes on.
Well, there's still some people on Twitter who believe that the cars might not be ready in time for 2021.
I've seen that as well.
Well, so far they only have one car technically in testing. So.
And also, are you guys surprised too that when the COT came out, the first race for that was Bristol, and they didn't just start using that car the rest of the year. I think they kind of phased it in.
They did.
Whereas this one, it's like, we're gonna start with Daytona right away, and see you later, the old car. So, are you surprised they didn't try to do that? To phase it in like the CLT, or do you think
start with road racing and short tracks,
or one type of track and still be able to use both cars? Or do you think the owners wanted to say, no, we just want one car and that's it?
Maybe the manufacturers too. Maybe they were like, hey, we're not gonna, we want to all be in the same boat. Like you said, maybe the owners thought that too. So I don't know, but it is going to be interesting to see though.
Are you guys are cool with the one lug nut, right? Because I think that's just the boomers complaining.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I can care less if there was no lug nuts.
The car. She's funny you say that because
I'm not a tire changer. It's not like it's going to affect me in a drastic way.
Yeah.
I'm just a paying public, fan that goes to a cup race or two a year. So whether they have one lug nut or 20, don't matter to me.
I mean, guys, the cars that are not stock anymore, okay? I don't care if you say real cars have 5.
Spoiler alert from 1968.
There was no such thing as a rear-wheel drive V8
Camry.
Yeah.
There's nothing stock about a stock car.
Yeah. I mean, Harry Ray told us all. What did you guys miss the memo? Do you guys
we were watching on ESPN.
So they clearly weren't watching enough because they didn't pick that up. So, but yeah. Good talk.
I think that's it, huh?
Good talk. So, thanks again, everybody, for tuning in to the second episode of the Racing Foolz podcast, powered by Low Budget TV and brought to you by Crown Performance. And we'll catch you next time on the Racing Foolz podcast. The Racing Foolz podcast is produced by TQ Media House in association with Low Budget TV. Special thanks goes out to Tommy and Jeffrey from Low Budget TV, Kelly McGuire for the free mic and mixer, and Ramon Ariola for helping create various show elements. Music is provided by RFM, royalty-free music in the YouTube audio library. If you like what you hear, give Low Budget TV a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what you think. We welcome all questions, comments, and ideas, and who knows, maybe your idea will be the next topic on the Racing Foolz podcast.